Hello, people. Can you all can you all see me? Hey, Ram, can you see me?
Yes.
Hello, people. Hello, Ram. Great. I see some responses coming in there. So, hello, Dilip. Hello, everyone who joined in on the day 3 of India Game Developer Conference. Just so you know that this is the 13th year of the conference and second, apparently, as a virtual conference, thanks to COVID. But you never know. We might actually do the event on ground next year. So that's something we'll figure out. But for today, it's a day 3. We had amazing day 1 and amazing day 2, and as you all know, that this is a conference that is being organized by the folks from the industry, what we call as uh, by the industry for the industry event, possibly the only and the largest game developer conference that happens in the world, which is primarily driven by volunteers, people like us who are primarily working for other company or have their own companies who are running their own other companies and so on and so forth. But they given their time to organize this. We have like over 40 volunteers this year organizing various things. A lot of them are creating content. A lot of them are actually helping in various parts of operations for the organizing this event. So thanks so much to them, and thanks so much to all of you who joined in. And Ram, thanks so much for joining in. So before we have Ram to take over, I would like to quickly thank our sponsors without whom we could not achieve this. We had our presenting sponsor, Unreal Engine, and they were really supportive, and gold sponsors too, from MPL, AWS, Glance, and Journey Games. We have legacy sponsors, silver sponsors who have been doing that for some time now. GameShun, Lakshya, and Yes No, bronze sponsor, Quali, and Gameon. We have hyper casual track sponsor Sunday, and IP Connect segment has been sponsored by Succeed Innovation, and and we are excited about this day today, and we would like to have Ram speak about the how to improve your day 30 LTV at a low cost operation. So I think he has some secrets. I think we should tune in. Ram is from GSN, and he will introduce himself. Ram, I'll be on backstage, and you can go live. Before one quick point, guys, we would love to hear get feedback from you guys. Please fill in the feedback form that you're going to put into the chat here, and also in the handout section. That would really help us to bring more awesome speakers like Ram. And so thanks so much. Over to you, Ram.
Thanks, Imtiaz. Okay, as Imtiaz was saying, my name is Ram. I'm from GSN Games. I head the casino business there. I'm a director of product. I've been heading the casino business for the past 2 years. And yeah, I thought I'll share some of my learnings of growing LTV there with everybody here. So let me share my screen. All right. All right. I'm assuming everybody can see my screen. Okay. Let's just get started.
We can see the screen, yeah.
Thanks, Imtiaz. Let's just get started. But before we get into the actual subject matter, just want to make sure everybody knows what to expect from this session. The agenda is that we'll talk about the importance of LTV and the various components affecting it, the prioritization approach between various ideas which you might have, an interesting framework to generate low-cost ideas, and a few examples of what has worked for us. The takeaways I would like everybody here to have is that this is not a checklist or an exhaustive list of do's and don'ts. It's more meant to inspire you to think about cost-effective LTV growth. Like, I'm going to share what worked for us, but it by no means is an exhaustive list, right? Second point is that this is primarily meant for mature games, but it's applicable to new IP as well. By mature games, I mean games with stable core loops, decent meta systems, and a decent set of users. But as I said, it's applicable to new IPs as well, depending on the state of the game. Right. With that, let me just kick it off by talking about importance of LTV. The conventional definition of LTV is that it's just the estimate of average revenue that a customer will generate throughout their lifespan as your customer. Is that how much revenue will you get from that player? It's called LTV or lifetime value. Classic definition, not specific to gaming or anything. And similarly, another principle which everybody knows about is, don't spend more than what you earn, right? That's basically what this equation is all about. LTV should be greater than CAC for a sustainable business. CAC is customer acquisition cost. It is the money you spend to acquire players. Make sure that the money you get from them is always more than the money you spend to get them, right? For example, if you spend $1,000 to get a few players for your product, make sure that you get more than $1,000 from them eventually, right? Now this is standard, not specific, standard across all businesses. Now let's look a little bit at what the gaming space looks like, right? Uh, the average gamer today has a lot of options, right? I think at last count, I think we read a report where it said that on App Store alone, there were around 800,000 odd games live on in 2021. I'm sure the number is similar, if not more, in Play Store as well. The growth of gaming has been a lot, right? Gaming apps, especially free-to-play games, right? But what that has also done is kind of crowded the space a little bit, which has resulted in people fighting for the same player, the same user, their market share or their revenue or their wallet share, which is why your cost per install is increasing. I've given some examples on the right. I haven't given the actual genres because confidentiality, but the CPIs year on year are rising a lot. Every year they keep rising by 80%, 90%, which means that your LTV has to catch up. It has to catch up and it has to outpace your cost of acquiring a customer because that is where you'll make money. So what does it tell us? Players have a lot of choice, right? Because of this choice, the cost to acquire a user and hopefully a paying user is always increasing, which means the only way you have to scale your business or grow your business is to improve LTV, right? These are just essential. This is the current state of the landscape in gaming right now. We can't rely on marketing alone, especially with the new Apple rules like IDFA coming in. CPIs will keep rising. Your only way is improve your product, improve your LTV, right? Okay, clear. Everybody knows now that LTV is an important thing. But for what time period should we optimize LTV for? By that, what I mean is that, okay, fine, we have gotten players to our game, they've installed the game. How much time should I wait till I get my money back? How should I get the money back right now? Ideally, yes, right? Yeah, as soon as somebody installs the game, you want them to give all the money you spend for marketing and much more than that. Well, that's not practical. It takes time to generate revenue. So in product parlance, this is called D1, D7, D30, D720. Do people give back enough money by day one, by day seven, in a year, 10 years? How do you think about it? Like, how long term should we go? How short term should we go? Like, a good way to think about it is by thinking about the funnel for player retention. This is again a standard funnel. This is not a specific game, just a funnel. Like, this is just the drop at each stage of a player's life in the game, just retention. Every day you keep losing players. Some players play for a day and then they leave. Some players for a week, some for a month, some for many years, right? Now, what does this tell us? This helps us understand where we should intervene in terms of making our improvements for LTV. If we intervene too late, let's say we want to say that, hey, let's improve day 720 LTV and let's take action for day 7 on year 2 or year 1, you won't have as many players left in the game to actually to make any significant or meaningful changes. Fine. So then, okay, you scale back and say, hey, let's make early changes. Like, let's just make all the improvements on day 1 and day 7 or day 2 or day 3. But that might lead to short-term success, short-term improvements, and that might not be scalable. Like, you'll make some great levels, you'll show some great levels up front, you'll show a lot of sales, you'll show a lot of in-app currency, inflation of balance, all of that. But that will just, die down after some time. So what is the right balance? The answer is it depends on your genre mostly. If you, for example, if you're working on a hyper casual game, it makes sense to extract revenue from players as soon as possible because the stickiness long term will not be that much. But if you look at a genre like social casino, like a game, so for example, the game which I work on, the casino business, GSN Casino, we have players who have been playing the game for 10 years, 12 years, right? It has a famously long tail. So you have to find the right sweet spot for your game. That, okay, fine. How long do people stay? When can I monetize without affecting retention? When can I retain them without affecting monetization? All of these things, right? But if you're confused and you have a lot of data hitting you and you don't know what to do, general rule of thumb or a good starting point is day 30, which is why day 30 is what people talk about a lot. Optimize day 30 LTV, and then you're kind of set up for the future. Again, I've just given an example here about how you calculate LTV. Fairly straightforward. If you get 1,000 installs and they give you $10,000 by day 30 in cumulative revenue, then for that particular cohort, D30 LTV is $10. Just 10,000 divided by 1,000. That's it. Similarly, you average it out for different install cohorts, and that's where you get D30 LTV. And this is the number you have to grow, D30 LTV. All right. Now, LTV is an output variable, which means that it's a function of the things which players do, function of the things which we do, in the game, how we design the experience, how players perceive it, and all that. And all of these add up to LTV. It's an output, right? So what are those components? What are those KPIs? They're pretty standard. There are three main ones, three main pillars, I would say, for LTV. Number one is you have to design for sticky experiences. People have to like your game. There's no two ways about it, right? That's classically called retention. You can split it further and say, okay, D1, D7, D14, return rate, wow by MAU, DAO by MAU, all of that stuff. But effectively, it's all about retention. Second is creating a desire for players to make a purchase, like for the first time. This is in product term again, as a KPI, it's called pair conversion or percentage pairs. And the third one is after they've made a purchase, make sure that spending again is meaningful to them. It can't just be that, okay, I made a purchase, now I'm done. So for me, right? And this adds up to revenue per pair. So retention, pair conversion, revenue per pair, all of these multiplied add up to LTV or lifetime value or revenue per user, whatever you might want to call it. These are the most important components which you need to think of as levers which you can move to influence your LTV and grow them, right? A question, like I'm going to preempt a couple of questions in this slide itself. You might think that, okay, fine, all these are good, but what is the most important component of, what is the most important KPI out of all these three main components you said? Well, we can talk about that, but before that, let's think about this question itself. The most important component of LTV. Why does this matter? Isn't everything important? Isn't retention important? Isn't monetization important? Well, yes and no. So the reason we have to answer this question is for prioritization. We need to know that, okay, if I move this number, retention number, for example, then my LTV will move by this much, right? For example, retention in your game, let's say it's very low, but pair conversion, revenue per pair are good. Then you focus on retention. If it's the other way around, you focus on monetization, revenue per pair, right? So this kind of helps you understand what you should focus on, right? Now let's think of this in terms of numbers. I like numbers, so I'm going to show numbers and tables. This is a sample example. It's a dummy, they're all dummy values. What I've written here is that, so different cases. So how does LTV change based on changes in retention, pair conversion, revenue per pair, which you might make? For example, in case one, I've said, if retention moves up by 5%, LTV only moves up by 22.5%. Case 2 is different, case 3 is different, right? This kind of tells us that in this equation or in this particular case, it looks like case 2, which is where you move pair conversion, LTV seems to go by 10%. That seems to be awesome. Like, why would you not work on pair conversion? Like, this is just meant to drive home a point that not all KPIs are created equal. Some KPIs are more impactful to drive LTV than some others, depending on your game. And again, in this case, you should obviously focus on case 2 unless it's impossible to increase pair conversion, right? So what you need to figure out is understand your current game state of affairs. Why do you need to do that? Because that will help you deploy your time and resources in the right areas. And you have to spend this time upfront. Or you have to say, okay, fine, pair conversion is the main driver of LTV, at least for the next few months. Why? Because from personal experience, I can say that I did not do this, and it caused me a lot of grief later. Because I focused on one KPI which didn't really move LTV that much, and after many months, I realized that, hey, this is not even the main driver of LTV, right? But again, as I mentioned in the previous slide, if there's no obvious winner, even though that's unlikely, but if there is no obvious winner, the general rule of thumb is that move retention and then monetize players later, because retention is more long term and is healthier from a game F2P gaming standpoint. Okay, so now let's say this kind of tells you how to prioritize. And if you have a few ideas, let's say, okay, I want to improve retention by this much, and retention is the most valuable KPI. You ideate. You say, okay, fine. I will design 5 levels, 5 new levels in my game, which will retain all my players very, very well. And these 5 levels will be the best levels ever designed. And you want to do that. Okay. And then you take this idea to your production team, specifically a producer, and say, hey, here's my cool idea. 5 levels. It'll take, I don't know, 6 months, 7 months of effort. Let's do it. But there's always a dilemma, right? It's ever present. Anybody know? Can anybody guess what the dilemma is from a production standpoint? You can guess in the chat. I'll give you a hint. Not enough engineers, not enough artists, not enough tech artists, not enough UX designers, no QA, no game devs. Essentially, we rarely have enough time. And this is not just a case with startups with 5 people. It's also a case with corporates with thousands of employees. Right? There's always a lack of time. So we're like, okay, fine. So production, they'll always push back. Producers will push back and say, hey, we cannot deliver this on schedule if the scope of this project is so big. Designing 5 levels. Okay. Then what do? We say, okay, fine. We'll back off. Let us rethink. So we rethink and figure out ways to reduce cost. Even though we have prioritized what we think are the most important levers, we are saying, okay, fine. Even those ideas need to have lower cost, lower solutioning effort. Okay. Does anybody know what the symbol is? I'm assuming some of you do. This is the recycling symbol. So recycling mantra, for those of you who don't know, is reduce, reuse, recycle. So don't worry, I haven't used that, but I have used something similar. Call it reskin, retune, and reorder. What does this mean? Reskin is just using new art for existing features, but without altering anything in the feature. No mechanic alteration, nothing. Retune is more about balancing of existing features based on what that player's capability could be. And reordering is just showing the right content at the right time. But again, it's not about new content creation. It's surfacing existing content at the right time. Right? So these are the three, let's say, rules or principles or guidelines we followed. They were commandments, so to speak, to reduce cost. And we looked at these commandments and we looked at what works for players and said, okay, fine. For existing players, we said, okay, what works best for existing players? What drives engagement, conversion, revenue per pair, all of it for existing players, not new players. And then we took those features, content, all of it, our core content, slot machines, recurring, non-recurring events, the sales, promos, the store. We took it all and repackaged them. And then we launched through a bunch of A/B tests. And you might, again, I'm going to preempt one more question. You might wonder, okay, fine, you did all this. Doesn't seem like it would have done much for you, right? This is what it did for us. So D30 retention improved by, again, I can't reveal exact numbers because, as you can see, the y-axis is blocked. But suffice to say that this trend should indicate that, hey, this worked wonders for us, right? Both retention and player conversion improved significantly. And consequently, LTV improved a lot, right? So all of these, so whatever those three principles we use, we looked at existing content, existing features, existing sales, and applied them, repackaged them, and showed them to new players, and it worked. All right. Now, this is, let's call this the high level framework. Maybe I'll just talk about a few examples which have worked for us, for our game. I won't go into too much detail, right? But it just makes sense to talk about a little bit, right? Okay, first example, timed bonuses. Now, I don't mean conceptualizing a new timed bonus. So what you see on the screen is a timed bonus feature which already exists in our game. It's called the hourly bonus, where you come back every year, you collect some in-app currency called tokens, right? So what did we do here? We did something simple. We just change the number. The number you just see is different. So 18,000 now instead of 4,500. Now, what is this number? Now, the critical piece here is the number, right? How do we arrive at this number? That is, we can say we ran a lot of A/B tests. We understood the player patterns a lot, poured through a lot of data, segmented a lot of token amounts, and then launched this. And then again, we had to launch, wait for A/B tests again, see results, come back, etc., etc. Right? So essentially here, The low cost part is that nothing changed apart from the number. But there is some work which happened in the back end. Segmentation effort happened, operation effort happened. But technically, let's say it is significantly less effort than creating a whole new timed bonus or appointment mechanic as such, right? Now, an interesting thing happened here. We initially thought that when we launch this, retention will improve. You know, when people get more tokens, the retention gets better, and because this is an appointment mechanic per se, the return rate of players will get better, right? To claim those extra tokens, and it did get better. It did get better by a few points, but the real number which changed were revenue per pair, and that was because these extra tokens made people feel rich, and because they were rich, because they felt like they were rich, they wanted to spend like rich people on the game. So revenue per pair increased, and consequently, LTV moved as well. As I said, retention, pair conversion, and pair, right? These three are the main pillars. So we moved a couple of them, and LTV moved as well. That's the first example. Let's look at the next one. New player sales. This is our current store. I mean, it's there for existing players. It's a fairly straightforward one. We show price points, we show tokens. We also say that, hey, there's a sale running, etc. There's a loyalty tier system here and all that. How did we repurpose this? We changed a couple of things. Number one is the theme itself, right? Look at all the confetti flying. Look at the HUD. The HUD says, what a deal, welcome offer. There's a nice host who's welcoming you and saying, hey, check this out. And another thing which we changed was the offer itself. We gave higher discounts. We said, okay, fine, more tokens on your first purchase. I've tried to highlight some of them here. We used to give 400% earlier. Now we give 1700, 2000% to new players. So all of this again is leveraging two of the principles I talked about, which is reskinning and retuning. The store, there's no new thing which you have created. You've just taken the store, reskinned it, changed the offer, changed the price point for just a generally better experience. This helped increase our pair conversion quite significantly as well. Let's take something similar but slightly different. Right? We also have a lot of pop-up sales running in our game, which is also the case for a lot of mature games. Right? Not only do you have the store, but you have a lot of one-time offers, special offers, this sale type, that sale type, etc. So we took all our successful sale types. We said, okay, fine, our 3 price point sale works, our flash sale works, which is limited time, our upsell offer works, a bunch of them, we took them. And then we saw what works best for existing players. We said, okay, fine, these things work best. And then we arranged them in a neat order for new players so that new players don't have to wait till their elder players to experience these offers. So whatever existing players like, show it to new players. And guess what? They liked it as well. So the learning which we got, and again, this is following two of the principles which I talked about, reordering and retuning. So we had a particular order of each sale type. We changed the order, retuned the sales and the price points and the offers to make sure that they're more aligned with the capability of new players. And, we won. In general, so, the takeaway or the learning from here is that if existing players like a particular sale type or they like a feature, the odds are new players will like it as well. So show that sale type to new players sooner than later. Obviously, there are exceptions to this, principle. If the sale type is too complicated, or if it is a bundled offer which requires resources which you can only acquire at later levels, all that stuff. Obviously, take that aside. But in general, I'm saying if the mechanic works there, it will work here. Right? This is the second example. Let me talk about the final example, which is reskinning existing event. Okay, but before I talk about the actual event which we reskinned, I'll give you a bit of context about this. So Deal or No Deal is a game show in US. It's very popular. And the theme in general, we leverage the theme. It's very appealing to new players in GSN Casino. We know that already. And what you see on the right is the App Store page for GSN Casino, our game, where you're showing how we handle and the Deal or No Deal branding there. And on the left are a few screenshots for awareness that this is what Deal or No Deal UI, visuals look like. So what we wanted to do was, how do we leverage this theme, which works for us, but how do we extend that brand? How do we extend the brand, but without actually, going ahead and creating one more brand new slot machine, which would take many months, or one more brand new event type, or one more new thing about it, one more mechanic. So we didn't want to do any of that because we couldn't, because of production constraints, which I mentioned earlier. How do we extend that brand? And that's when we said, okay, fine, let's look at existing events. This is an event called match delicious, or what mechanic is basically a match mechanic. You basically get picks from the core loop or from purchases, as you can see, 20 picks for $1, or you can spin and engage with the core loop to get those picks. And then you uncover those candies, and then when you match to, you get these token rewards in app currency, right? I said, okay, fine. This is an interesting event mechanic. How can we use this to leverage deal or no deal brand? This is what we did. So no change at all in the mechanic apart from the theme. It's now the briefcase are there instead of the candies. The theme has become ideal match, and the UI is all about deal or no deal and all that stuff. There are a couple of other changes. I don't know if you have noticed. I've tried to highlight them here. We also retuned them. Look at the rewards. The rewards are significantly higher now, and the price is also a little bit higher. Yeah, and the duration also is different. Again, this is leveraging all three principles: reskinning, retuning, and reordering. Oh yeah, I did not mention reordering, right? So once we rethemed this, what we did is we took this event and put this as the first event which any new player will see after they reach a certain level. They don't see match delicious, they don't see any of our quest mechanics, elimination, nothing. This is the first thing they see, right? It's leveraging all three. You reskin it, you retune it, and then you place it in the right position for the players so that they can experience the content fast and first. Now, this was again I can't reveal the exact numbers, but what I can say is that once we did launch this event, this particular event was one of the top three reasons for second purchases of players, for actually getting players to convert second time, which is affecting revenue per pair. So yeah, high level it worked. Just another example, a similar one from a different game, Slotomania. There, it's very, very similar to what I just described. So they have a quest on the left, you see their existing quest. On the right is just theming and saying that, hey, new user quest, right? So yeah, so these are the few examples I just wanted to take everybody through. We did a lot more than this, of course, but we don't have time to cover all that. If you want to know more, obviously you can reach out to me later offline. But we did a lot more like that. But again, always based on the same principles, which is reskin, retune, reorder, right? Just to make sure cost is lower, but we're having the right impact. And as I said, we did have impact, as you saw in the slides earlier. Okay, and before you head out and say, hey, let me just implement all of this in my game and let's see if it succeeds. Hang on, just a couple of cautions, pitfall notice. Let's say a few mistakes which I have made, which I would prefer other people don't make. Some people say that because we have to do this with low cost, which means that we have to do it faster, which also sometimes translates to no understanding or no analytics. So that's wrong. Don't do that. Always understand what you're getting into. Always understand what the player's behaviors and needs are before figuring out solutions. Don't over optimize for a single KPI. What I mentioned, retention, revenue per pair conversion. Don't optimize just for a single one. Remember that your goal always is LTV. That is your North Star. So don't think that, okay, fine, I'll just make retention the best retention in the world and things will work. That's unlikely to happen. And that's mostly because of the reason which I'm mentioning here. Some KPIs are negatively correlated with each other. For example, retention increase could reduce pair conversion, which means you are getting more non-pairs in your game, and technically it's not affecting LTV at all. So be wary of that. Always use A/B test segmentation as much as possible. A lot of people avoid it because of operational complexity or for other reasons, but try and leverage. And always be aware of what drives your production costs. So the examples I gave earlier are kind of about reskinning and retheming and retuning, right? Which means art is available to us. We had art available through outsourced capabilities, and we had low-cost ways to accomplish that in-game as well, or in-house as well. But that might not be the case for your game. So make sure that you are aware of what your game's cost drivers are. So and avoid and work around those cost drivers, not drive them further up. Always remember, goal is LTV, not a KPI. Don't miss the forest for the trees. Always keep your eyes on the prize. That has to be your ultimate goal. Okay, right. So with that, I'll just summarize. As I said, in the current landscape, improving LTV is the most reliable to scale. There is no two ways about it. The general rule of thumb is optimizing for D30 LTV, but you should pick the right time period for your game, for your genre. Might be different. And as I said, LTV is controlled by retention and monetization KPIs. You might want to prioritize what drives this LTV more. So make sure you're prioritizing and make sure that you're doing that work upfront to avoid grief and tears later. Remember the three principles for low cost: reskin, retune, reorder. Make sure you know what works for existing players and do the repackaging, do the retuning, do the reordering, and then deliver to new players. And that will work. And as I said, the goal is LTV, not retention, not revenue per pair, not pair conversion, none of that. It's LTV. Always remember that. And yeah, that's about it from my side. But before I sign off, it's kind of like an open secret or elephant in the room that Scopely is in the process of acquiring GSN Games for roughly $1 billion. We're very excited about the opportunity and about what kind of growth it might get to our particular studios here. I can't talk much more than that because it is literally illegal because the deal is not closed yet. But yeah, we are very excited for the way forward for our studio, India studio, and overall company in general. And if you're interested in joining us on the journey, follow us on the careers page, jason.jason.careers. Or if you have some interesting thoughts or ideas about our journey, feel free to ping me on LinkedIn. And with that, I think I am done. I can take any questions anybody has. Let me check. Q&A. Lots of questions. At what point of game development / post development we should start planning D720? It's difficult to plan for D720, to be honest. D720 is 2 years, right? If you're just starting out, you should think about it, but you should not. There's no need for you to optimize for it. Optimize for D30 if D30 is solid and it's not like it's localized. Like it's not like after D30 your metrics fall off, then you should be fine. As long as you have repeatable loops, stable systems, and enough levels, then you should be fine. When should you start planning for D720 is once you have a mature base and once you know that, yeah, you know what, I have done everything I can to improve toggle fun. I have done everything I can to, make sure D30, D60, D90, they're all good. Then you go longer and longer. So you usually start from the top and then go to D720. Okay. What do you recommend to increase the purchase frequency? There are many examples or best practices out there in the market. There's no one way to do it, but essentially I would say you need to know what works for existing games. Like I'll speak in the context of this presentation and not overall for gaming or any game in general. In the context of this presentation, if you're saying that, hey, my new player purchase frequency is bad, but my existing player purchase frequency is decent, look at what makes that decent. Are people making purchases more frequently because they're engaging with a particular level, or they like a particular thing, or they like a particular offer? Figure that out. Show it to new players in a better, different way. Generally speaking, how to improve purchase frequency, that's like a big topic because it has many variables. Maybe you can chat about it offline, or maybe next year I can talk about that. Okay. Newbie in coding and programming, want to build a game, so what should be the roadmap? Yeah, not specific. It's not really in the context of this discussion. But I would say figure out what platform or what engine you want to use. Just start building. Most of the resources are available for free for most people anyway. Just start building, just start launching. Both Google and Apple stores have very lenient policies towards games who are less than a certain number of users, less than a certain number of revenue. Start launching, see what works for players, find your product market fit, find your game, and then scale. So try a bunch of ideas first is what I would say, and then see what works and then take it forward. Okay.